having some noodles. Some coffee. And a Sprite. Ah, bless you. Bless me. So nothing going on here. Just digging around. Playing around. I watched a video. Oh, what did that do? Oh, I guess first thing I should do is share screen. I lost my event. Got 35 views on my video the other day. I'm surprised I got 35. Maybe over time. Hey, love and life, what's happening? I do stop by. I know you got more Cherokee. I lost my. We all got that. We all got more Cherokee. It's just the whole. See, I never bring up the subject. People like, you got some Indian blood in you. I'm like, nah, I mean, I don't know, maybe kind of. But I ain't no Indian. So, I don't know. So, you know, the news media brought the subject up. And since they brought it up, and then my mom gave me these pictures of me in Norfolk, it just kind of wheels start turning. So I had nothing to do. So I got on YouTube and Google Maps. I made a quick video. And didn't research anything, just right off the top of my head. Here's what I remember. And now I'm going back, thinking about it some more. I guess it's stuck in my head. So I don't know. Probably nobody really interested. But I'm gonna dig around. One of the things that I found, which is I took a trip to study my family, Western Branch Cherokee Indians. That's what I got the cabinet open. Maybe by tomorrow I'll dig all that shit out and find my paperwork so I can actually have city names and river names and be able to track these guys, these three generations. It's weird because it happens over. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens over It's a movement that happens over generations. But I was watching a video. I'll actually, I'm going to play that video because if I lose viewers, I don't care. I don't care. I'm just goofing off here. Actually, here's since I have this on the map here, I will pull this up. Now, see, this is where I think the Western branch of the Cherokee Indians likely one main place that they would likely to be here is here at Sycamore Lodges, whatever Sycamore. I don't know what Sycamore Lodges are, but I will. What we was going here. I have a relative that's buried. From what I understand, I don't know for sure, but we'll just land right here on the bridge. Buried here. at at um at Sillimore, Sillimore. It's actually Sillimore was the Indian. It's crazy. They say that in the time that Sillimore was founded by Sillimore, an Indian named Sillimore, he was silly. He ran around joking with people and laughing. He was just a comedian kind of guy. When he was here, all this land, you could go out in these trees. You could go anywhere here, and you did not have to have any arrows for your bow and arrow. Where's the river? Thought we were going over a river. I don't even know where I'm at now, since I can't find a river. Let's reland. Let's relook at that. Okay. Or X. X. Oh, here's the river. We landed in the wrong place. we landed over the road tracks. The road tracks follow the river. The highway follows the river. On both sides of the river, two different highways. And you can take a bridge over this river at Calico Rock, which is up the river up there. Or you can come all the way down to here on the other side of the forest. It's all forest here. And go over there. So this is the White River. This is why these Western, if you hear people talk, there's no denial that when these Indians went here first to resettle, their best settling place was the White River. And Cherokees had split into two tribes. One of the tribes was like looking to move into the industrial future with the white man. And the other tribe, the Kitawas, this is just what I understand, broke into another tribe that wanted to remain with the old ways, the old Indian ways that traditional ways that they'd always had before the white men. And these were the first ones to leave North Carolina. They didn't walk on the Trail of Tears. They were and they didn't all leave either. So, but were these ones that wanted to keep their traditional hunting, traditional Indian ways, did not want to industrialize with the white man. So they moved over here. And I think Sillimore, I'll kind of tell you why that is. From into Sillimore here. Been a long time since I've been here. Somewhere, my internet's slow, so let me see if we can just pop out here for a second to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. Sillimore. I wonder what Bluffview Cabin is. But I'm thinking right around in here. I don't know if we'll be able to see it, so it would probably be right here. Let's drop little man right here and see if we find a cemetery. Oh, we're not. Cemetery's right back. Might be able to see it down here. The cemetery is behind that. See, the cemetery is out in there, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's kind of an Indian type. No stone, no names on the stones, and I don't know if I was chicken to go up to the door. All these roads got these trees beside them, so you can't see anything. Or can we? I think I got to go on around here further. Past that. I wonder if I can pass that truck. Uh-oh. Back at the railroad tracks. Yeah, where was it from the railroad tracks? Oh, we can see from the, it's probably more like here. It's down in there. I don't know. But anyway, where is the road tracks? I wonder what it looks like from right here. This is the stupid shit I do to entertain myself at nighttime. Search around for old places that I've been. Oh, it might be right down that road. It might even be more like up in here. It doesn't make any difference. Take a little drive through here. And you go over the river here, headed out of Silamore. So I really think that Silamore was one of the main places that the Cherokee Nation began to move. And it's probably why you see a lot of people like, I have Cherokee background. Well, you probably do. I mean, it spread right across the middle of the United States like wildfire from two different tribes. One tribe wanting to industrialize with the white man, and the other tribe wanting to keep the Native American ways. Now, that leads me to a good question. Of which of these two tribes, one that wants to go with the Native American ways and one that wants to go with the traditional Indian ways, which one do you think would have or one go traditional and one go industrial white man ways? Which one do you think would always have kind of an advantage? The ones men, they'd be the ones even writing the history, controlling the history, and they're also the ones from the Trail of Tears too. They're the one that the white man beat up on the most. But driving up this hill is a cool drive. Pretty cool. We drove up this way because I think my great grandfather settled up this road. This was his land. Anywhere you go out here, you didn't need any bows and arrows. They're just bows or you had to need a bow, but no arrows. The arrows were laying on the ground all around. So if I back up, we see the caverns, Blanchard Springs Caverns, a forest. I don't know what forest this is. I assume it's a forest. It's on the White River. So anyway, so Allison down here is where Sillymore is. Sillymore is out at Allison. And if you go straight up the river, everything these people did, they liked to do it on the river. That was their highway, their transportation. That's how they got here from North Carolina in the first place, was on these rivers. So you go all the way up this river. And it's a nice wide river, so you can, go against the current. You can travel either way, to or fro. You go up here to Calico Rock, and I'm pretty sure that Calico Rock is where Jacob, the Jacob house was. Jacob's courthouse, and Jacob was a blacksmith. And so that's one thing I look at for, if you're going to have a Indian immigrate into, you're going to facilitate the immigration of a Cherokee Indian out of the Cherokee lands into some other lands, in this case into Osage land. What you're going to need is a courthouse, and a blacksmith, and probably a general store. General stores are another story. my papa, my nana was Cherokee, and my papa actually owned a general store. So, but that's over in Oklahoma with the industrialized branch of the Cherokee. The Tahlequah Nation is what that is now, and that's the Tahlequah are the industrialized. They're the last to come. They walked on the Trail of Tears. The Trail of Tears had the industrialized Indians on it. And you find them at Tahlequah. But I haven't looked a lot, but I'm not interested. I haven't been interested because it's not part of my family. But Tahlequah, as far as I know, doesn't have a courthouse. And Tahlequah doesn't have a courthouse and doesn't have a blacksmith. And if I'm correct, I think I'm correct about this, Tahlequah Nation is in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. I lived there for a couple of years. My daughter was born in Okmulgee. It's where the Okmulgee was first it was the Creek Nation. It was the courthouse of the Creek Nation. I know a little bit about Creek Nation stuff because my great-grandfather ran a cemetery. And he had to know where all these burial grounds are, and sometimes he had to move burial grounds, and he lived up here with these Indians a lot for a long time. So Tahlequah in Okmulgee, I'm pretty sure, is head of the Cherokee Nation, the industrialized branch of the Cherokee Nation. The last people, the last Cherokees to leave North Carolina on the Trail of Tears. In Tahlequah now, headquarters. They keep all the records, right? They're the industrialized guys. They're the ones that want, to do the white man's ways. They keep all the records. But all the key was they wanted to keep the old man's ways. and just live out in the wilderness and, hunt and gather, and didn't want to industrialize. So whose records do you think you would see in the white man's books? You're going to see the ones in Tahlequah. But when you go to Tahlequah, maybe I should go to Tahlequah on here and see if I can find a courthouse and a blacksmith. I looked at some videos. It just looks like a fake made up Indian. I don't know. It's not realistic. It looks like a tourist attraction. That's what it looks like. But they keep all the rolls of all the numbers. Mostly the numbers of the people that walked on the Trail of Tears. But, eventually they had to admit that there was other Cherokees. So they said, well, if you got a quarter Cherokee that's Kiowa, we'll let you in our rolls. Which is crazy. But it doesn't matter to me because I ain't trying to benefit out of any numbers anyway. I don't like industrialization. Well, not to the extent that's harmful for man and its history. And so here's Sylamore down here. Come up the White River. Calico Rock is where Jacob Wolf's courthouse and blacksmith were. Now they're at Norfolk now, and we know that if we watch my other video. And here's Norfolk Lake. Here's the dam. On my trip here, I drove all the way down this river to Norfolk, down this river to Calico Rock, down the river to the next crossing, the next bridge at Allison, which is Sylamore. Quite a drive. And then went up continued on this road up to Mountain View. And I could be getting Mountain Ozark Folk Center State Park. This is dead center of Ozarks. I could be getting Mountain View and Mountain Home mixed up. I'm not sure. I think Mountain Home is more a tourist town. I've been to both these places. But you come into Mountain View on Sylamore Avenue, which is Highway 5, that follows. Oops, don't go in. I'm zooming in. That follows the White River. This is the mainland of the Western Branch, Kiowa. Well, they started getting pushed out of here because white people come in here and they like this. The first people got pushed out of here was the Osage Indians. Originally, there wasn't no Cherokee here. There was Osage, and they don't get along. Eventually, they started getting along, kind of. By the time they got pushed all the way into Oklahoma and Kansas, and that Trail of Tears thing came along, they like to follow the rivers. So here they could follow these lakes and rivers, and they got pushed. The American government pushed them west through here, through Berryville, Eureka Springs, and Bella Vista. Shell Knob's very nice place. Through Shell Knob, they just kept pushing them over here to, now here's Tulsa, Oklahoma, and here's Wichita, Kansas. And what they did was they took these, you can see this, they took the Cherokees moved in, they pushed the Cherokees in, and the Cherokees pushed the Osage Indians over here to Pawhuska, to this right here, the Osage Reservation, which, like I said, now is like rich people, filthy rich. It's up by Ponca City, and it's up by Coffeyville. It's between Ponca City and Coffeyville. Coffeyville is a big city with 3 banks that 3 boys tried to rob. The Dalton brothers in the cowboy days. Stillwater, Oklahoma is where my grandma and grandpa on my dad's side are buried. But they're from over here, Tulsa. So, when find these Indians, you always try and look for the lakes and the rivers. There's a lot of lakes and rivers right down here. Eufaula Lake. These are the Canadian river bottoms. And I went to school in Okmulgee, and right down the street is Henrietta, right here. Henrietta, that's where my grandpa owned a funeral home. Lots of Indians. He moved funeral. Creek Nation is out here. So the Osage is above us, above Tulsa, and the Creek Nation is down here below Tulsa. So I think if we go into Henrietta, if we go into Okmulgee, well, one thing it's going to say Muskogee Creek Nation. Travel Plaza. Airport. See, I'm thinking somewhere right out around here is, I could be wrong. I have to Google it. So we'll try that. Try and find out where these guys are. This is the Muskogee Creek Nation Courthouse. Okay. Okay. Town. Nation headquarters. You don't find Tahlequah Nation courthouse. So where are we in this? I guess I'm about to learn, aren't I? Never stop learning. Where in the world are we? Well, we're going to have to back up to figure this out. Oklahoma City, Joplin, Missouri. We're out in eastern Oklahoma, which is right. That there's the Illinois River. That's where they do the canoe trips. That's where the Charioteers went to. But if this is Oklahoma City, then Okmulgee should be around here. Oh, there's Muskogee. So Okmulgee's going to be over here, Pegs. There's Okmulgee. And here's the office of the Cherokee Nation. Now, the Creek Nation, we know the courthouse, and it's big enough, it would definitely have a blacksmith, general store, and everything. It's over here in Okmulgee. And we know that up here around Independence or Coffeeville. Up in here is the Coffeeville right here. Coffeeville. There's Coffeeville, dead center. That's the. Uh-oh. Now look at this. It's all over. Oh, here's the Senecas over here too. I mean Cherokee Nation spread. But the Osage Indians were above Tulsa, over there by Coffeeville, Independence, Coffeeville, Sedan. Sedan is where the clown, the hobo clown Emmett Kelly is from. Anybody want to know that? So, Cherokee tag office, Cherokee Nation Housing Authority, Cherokee Nation Tribal Services. Here we go. What is this? At Muskogee. That makes sense. Okay. Is that right? Uh-oh. You go through Broken Arrow to the Cherokee Nation. Is that exactly to Muskogee? But I think there's a headquarters at Tahlequah, headquarters at Okmulgee too. Spread all over the place here. So here's the community and cultural center. Let's see if we can find a picture of that. Let's zoom in. If you can't find a picture, find the little guy. Where is the little guy? Oh, it's not on this map. That's not on my. Let's switch over here. No. Oklahoma City. Coming over here to. We'll come down Broken Arrow to Muskogee to right in this area. Fort Gibson. Ah, there's your courthouse. There's your courthouse and your blacksmith. Fort Gibson. I see. So this is the home, Fort Gibson. This is the home of the industrial branch of the Cherokee, the white boy loving Cherokee Indian here, because that's where he got pushed off to. Oh, and here's Tahlequah. Okay, maybe it was a sign from Okmulgee that. No, there was a sign at Okmulgee that said Tahlequah headquarters. I don't know what it was. So Tahlequah is a little place. Northeastern State University of Tahlequah. I don't know a lot about Tahlequah. I don't know much about that branch of the Indians. But that's the last place for Cherokees to land. Those were industrialized Cherokees that got bad over here. And now they run. Now they think they run the Cherokee Nation. And they write all the rules. And they're the John Ross bunch. And they are Democrats. They are Confederate. They are Confederates. In the Civil War, they fought for the Confederate Army, who of course wanted to control everything. The Confederate armies, the fuckers that actually pushed them out of their homeland and walked them over there, and then they fought for the Confederate army. Now the Kiowa branch, the branch of the western branch of the Cherokee, were the ones that left first. And they're not even designated as the record keepers. They didn't come down here. They were up here where it's Springfield, Joplin, Pittsburgh, Kansas, spread across this Oklahoma, Kansas border, up here where these Osage Indians got so in touch with the Kiowa Cherokees that they were trading land back and forth because the Cherokees had been pushed up into Kansas, which they're not there anymore. But they were trading lands with between the two Indian tribes without the government getting involved in it. And of course, down here in Muskogee is where the Trail of Tears went. So up here, spread across here is the Kiowa. The Kiowas are spread all the way from the Mississippi River across these forests, across Kansas, the southern Kansas border, the northern Oklahoma border, way out here, probably the Woodard. My uncle had a dentist. He's a dentist. He lived in Woodard. So, man, I got all kinds of history hooked up into this. My great-great-grandfather was born right over here by Stillwater, probably on the R. I don't know where Stillwater is, a little town called Jennings. Jennings is where they talk about the land rush into Oklahoma, and Jennings was a train. It was a refinery, gas refinery, and train center. Interesting enough, I got pictures of it when it had. Actually, it doesn't have a refinery there anymore, but my grandfather, before he was a mortician and owned a cemetery down in the Creek Nation, he was a engineer at the he's an engineer at the refinery in Jennings. And Jennings and Tulsa are two towns that worked a lot together. There's this, what's that? Some sheriff named Al somebody running back and forth, and it's kind of like, it's almost like a Wyatt Earp story, but actually they probably worked together. Probably worked with Wyatt Earp. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Just watching a video. I've been watching the sidebar. Hey, look. Hi, buddy. Love and life, Greg. Susie. Am I doing the Trail of Tears? Actually, I'm doing more Kiowa. Forced to walk and die. Yeah. And then now they got the upper hand on the ones that never made the walk. So, yeah, that's interesting. That's back here in North Carolina. I watched some videos on it, and it shows there's a whole weird story around this Cherokee. How their lands got broken, because the Cherokees owned all this shit. And if they would have won the Civil War, they probably would have went back to owning all this stuff. That's part of the reason I think they fought on the side with the Confederate. They wanted more Cherokee influence in their homeland. I'm not actually sure about that, but I know the ones that were last to leave were Confederates, and the ones that were first to leave, the Kiowa, were fought for the North. They were a Union Army. I need to learn more about this. Never did say that my grandma's name was Ethel Qualls. Ethel Qualls. Somewhere right down in the middle of this place is Koala. Because I've been searching for Quall stuff and found this town, Koala, right in the middle of the Cherokees. Up here. Koala and see. Yeah, I did. That's what I meant. 2 L's. Actually, my mom's my grandma's maiden name is spelled with 2 L's. But now you see here it's 1 L. It keeps going back, and it's at Charlotte. There's something about Paula, North Carolina, that makes me think Cherokee. It don't even look like it's in. Maybe it's not in. Maybe it's not in North Carolina. A lot of information here. Some restaurants. Events in Koala. All in North Carolina or Charlottesville. I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to look into that. So history. What spurred my mind? Take a little time off from talking, and I watched this video right here. This is Cherokee Days 2018 Western Cherokee History presentation. And this lady's kind of good. She's pretty good. I mean, she gives you she's the one who'll tell you who's the Confederate and who's the Union and how they spread. And but I think she has this favoritism to the industrial Cherokee, the Cherokee Nation, rather, which I guess is okay for her to favor them over the Kiowa, which is the traditional Cherokee ways. Sequoia he's the one that wrote the Cherokee alphabet. He was kind of like a convert. When he moved west, he moved with the Kiowa. John Ross, originally with the Kiowa, but then moved over with the to the Confederate side before the Confederate War. So I was watching this and I thought, this is kind of biased. I think this is a little biased. They seem to favor the industrial Cherokee.
Hello, I'm Sam Jones.
All right, Sam.
And the program you're about to see may surprise you. You know, you and I live in a very fast-moving and sometimes hectic world. And many times we fail to notice what's going on right next to us. Very often, discoveries of something we've missed along the way are greeted with a degree of skepticism. But those things, as some choose to call them, are important because, like it or not, they make up this world of ours. And because of that, they have their place. Right here in Oklahoma, there lives a group or body of people who actually walk in two different worlds, theirs and the world of the non-Indian, where the phrase, "I'll see you in the morning," means sunrise, not 9:30 or 10. Now, in a very general sense, they are American Indians. Coming a little bit closer, they are Cherokee. And if you're specific, well, what you're about to see has never been recorded by television cameras, although it flourishes now in rural Oklahoma. Much has been written about the Cherokee Indians, and a great deal is known about the early Cherokee lifestyle. But this is not the story of the Cherokee. It is about what many consider to be their main religious body, the original Kituwa Society. Shrouded in secrecy, suspect by those weak in their own faith, and very often accused of voodoo or even witchcraft by non-believers. This is the first documentation of this religious order, and it was conducted with the help and the cooperation of its leaders and its membership. Now, some of the scenes you're about to see were taped using only a few bare light bulbs, and much of the language is Cherokee. The Kituwas are bilingual, and Cherokee is the language of their ceremonies. Now, in the beginning, we thought this project would be completed in a month, perhaps even 2 at the most. Well, in fact, we spent a year and a half documenting their religious practices, moving at the pace that they set, and one that allowed us to actually learn from them of the old ways. It is the first known view of their secret ceremonies and their closely guarded artifacts. But you can't videotape beliefs. Even so, by the end of this hour, I think you will have a feeling for their beliefs, and that is important. So in a moment, we'll take you to the beginning of our search for the Kituwas and share with you what we learned along the way in Spirit of the Fire.
If I get a copyright for this.
I don't have to tell you that in today's world, the sights and sounds are all just about the same. But we are different, each one of us. Still, in many ways, we're all the same. And one day each week, many of us come together in part because of that. Let us pray. Dear Father,
That don't look very Cherokee to me. Like a bunch of white guys.
some come together in different places, but they all pray in the same direction.
I don't think so.
Sunday morning, rural southeast Oklahoma, and one of the oldest religious sites in this part of the country.
They're on the Illinois River over here. Always on some river.
As civilization began to claw its way westward, Cherokee Indians would be found living in caves and settings similar to this village reproduction at Cherokee in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. They fished, hunted, and trapped for food and clothing. They also farmed, which in addition to providing food, gave them barter for trade. With the passing of time, victorious hunts and battles against man and the elements went unrecorded. Word of mouth or drawings kept some of those stories alive. Others were handed down to the young by their parents and by tribal elders. Somewhere, though, in those early years, it's thought the crude formation of a religious fellowship or doctrine of sorts began. Because it wasn't recorded as it occurred, the actual time frame isn't known. This man, Sequoia, gave them a means by which to record events, the Sequoia Cherokee alphabet. Today, there are records of...
All right. Sequoia is not an industrialized white man Cherokee Nation guy. He's a Kituwa. He's also Union Army. He's not Confederate Army. He's Union Army. And I don't think this is going on in Tahlequah. I mean, it probably, because more John Ross would be in Tahlequah. Anyway.
Tribal events, births, deaths, and the like. Many of those records, though, are gathering dust in libraries and museums. But the records of the original Kituwa Society aren't among them. Those records will be found here, where the religious fellowship lives today, in the foothills of southeast Oklahoma. Well, the Kituwas may live here.
Now, see, the Kituwas don't live there. Okay, I think this is biased. And why are their records kept there in Confederate lands when they were Union Indians? They were a Union Army. So why are their records being kept down there by the white man's Cherokee, the Cherokee Nation, the industrialized, the Trail of Tears, the Cherokees that stayed in North Carolina until the last minute and wanted to assimilate into the white society there. And through the Civil War, wanted to take over that whole place.
But so did thousands of other Cherokees, and not all of them are members. A great many years ago, there were secret greetings when members met, a special way of gripping the coat lapel, or perhaps a tilt of the hat. Now, the latter prompted the nickname Pinhead Indians by some whites in the late 1800s.
That tip of the hat, or that showing your under your collar, you had a metal pin, that would show that you are a Union Army Cherokee, Kituwa, not a Cherokee Nation, white boys Cherokee. But who holds the records? The white boys do.
Even though I'm a native of this part of the country, I had no idea how difficult it would be, first to locate the Kituwas, and second, to obtain permission to invade their territory with camera crews and microphones. Well, our search took us here. The organization's bylaws, first written down about 1859, call for a stomp ground where members could practice their faith. This one, the old Stokes grounds near Bayonne, Oklahoma, was established just after the beginning of the Trail of Tears. There would be many others, but this would be the main one. Today, it's federally protected land and open to all who care to stop by. We did, and walked these grounds in the early summer of 1982. There's a fireplace. Long.
See, this is restored. It's fake. This is fake. It's just made to look probably not right with these sawed log. I don't know. Maybe we have a fancier one here in Wichita, Kansas, where we do big Indian powwows. Hey, is that a white man?
Cold, but there was a time when dancers moved about this once holy place, singing and dancing and celebrating life, paying tribute to the Great Spirit. 7 arbors, one for each of the clans of the original society, stand in a circle around the fire. Empty now, rebuilt many times over the years, they now stand as mute tributes to the thousands of sermons once preached here. Stickball. Although many cultures in
stickball, why the hell would they be playing stickball? White man's sport. You know, I always had, I always been told, you know, you got a little Cherokee in your blood. But then I've always had this kind of impression left in my mind that these Cherokees are idiots. No, it's good that you have Cherokee blood in your, in you, but Cherokees are idiots. We don't really like them. They're dumbfounded, controlled by the white man and stuff. But I mean, it was like is that tobacco? It looks like tobacco. Yeah, so I always had that, and I never knew why. Why was my family so impressed with Osage Indians and Creek Indians, and they weren't impressed with no Cherokee Nation? It's probably because they realized, they probably knew some things they don't want to, they don't even talk about the Indian background and Indians, because people listen for a few minutes and then their mind drifts because it's such a nut house. All these tribes and stuff moving, migrating, immigrating west. Did the white man move west? Hell no. He sent the fucking Indians out there first. Yeah, he's like, well, we want to go west. Send the Indians out there first, and we'll see if it's safe to do it. And they sent us out there, and yeah, oh no, there's a bunch of Osage. They're mad as, oh, there's this tribe mad. That's what you do. You send the Indians out first, and then send the wagon trains. Send a wagon train full of Indians out there first. See how that would actually, they didn't have much of wagon trains back, Daniel Boone. They had Daniel Boone rifles. That's what they had. This is before the Civil War, before cowboy days. There wasn't no cowboy and Indians. It was Indians and Daniel Boone. So I think that's why there's always been this kind of resentment in me stored in me for the Cherokee Nation, even though I was told I got Cherokee blood.
Enjoyed the game.
Because they make stories like this one.
The Catawbas also played it during those early years in Tennessee and Carolina. But for many years, these grounds would vibrate with the activities of those games.
It's like a bunch of white boys.
The council hut, the medicine fire, cooking and meeting arbor, and the water well. All of the physical ingredients needed and called for in the Catawba bylaws.
Except a river.
And from time to time, usually a Saturday night, somebody builds a fire here. And there might even be some dancing. But the Catawbas abandoned this ground years ago. For them, this ground is dead.
I bet even here, I looked around enough, I'd find a place where this is probably where the white boys were. And I'd find somewhere out there around it a river, and that'd be where all the arrows were laying on the ground. Will you show me a bug? You show me a bug.
In July of '82, the search brought us here to an undisclosed location in southeast Oklahoma, where the Catawbas decided, through much prayer and meditation, to relocate their grounds. This sign at the gate, the conduct rule, in Cherokee and English, it is strictly enforced.
I cannot believe that. I just can't believe the Catawbas would establish their ground on Confederate territory that was not native to where they are from, which is Kansas-Oklahoma border, which is miles and miles and miles away from here.
There would be many visits to this area with no camera crew.
They're still, the Cherokee Nation is trying to steal our name, Kudawa, to claim to be that they're the real live off the earth Cherokees, but they're the white man's Cherokees, trying to steal our name. They're as bad as it's probably where Elizabeth Warren is from. This is what they do. We're the real Indians. We're not influenced by the white people. No, you're not the real Indians. You're the ones you're the traitors. You're the traitors, and you're the last ones to leave North Carolina. Everybody else left before you because you traded off all their land. And then you got stabbed in the back by white boy.
Requesting permission to do the story. And it was during one of those visits that I first stepped back into the possibly the 1400s. I had asked to address the chief, the councilmen, the elders, and medicine men in the old way. Well, permission for that was granted. The meeting was held on a Sunday morning, about 1 a.m. Their council
1500s, 1400s, dude, they would still be in North. That's, are you kidding me? This was Osage. This was Creek Nation in 1500s. There was no Cherokees here in 15 or 1400. You're dead set in the middle of fucking Creek Nation, dude.
The meeting was already underway in this hut when the door opened and I was taken in. Alone with those tribal leaders in that setting, I became the only white man that, to their knowledge, had ever approached the tribe in this manner. And they sat back to the...
This is more of a prison camp than it is anything for, you know, the Trail of Tears prison camp.
Wall, and I talked, stopping occasionally so my words could be repeated in Cherokee. And when it was over, I was taken from that council hut, emotionally drained, and the door closed. Bullshit. About an hour later, word came. They weren't all in agreement, but one of those supporting the idea of the documentation was Kituha Chief William Smith. According to their bylaws, the chief has the power to settle any differences among the council.
William Smith. William Smith. That sounds like a chief to me.
Councilman. So, permission was granted to bring in cameras.
Hi, I'm Chief Bill Smith. Chief Bill Smith, what the fuck?
Again, we would break new ground, recording for the first time not a tourist attraction or a reproduction, but the actual worship service of the Kituha Society. There is already a compelling attractiveness here, always in anticipation of some coming event.
Yeah, there's a worship service that this Cherokee Nation learned and copied from a Kituwa society that was in Union land, not Confederate land.
And when members gather,
it's a Confederate copy.
The clock is turned back. Sternly conservative, they cling to what's termed the old ways. We arrived the fourth Saturday in August, around mid-morning. It would be many months, though, before we learned that two ceremonies of major importance and older than the state of Oklahoma had already occurred. The official lighting of this holy fire and the smoking of the pipe to bless the grounds. By allowing us the luxury of a late arrival, the elders had already started our educational process. Moving at their pace and in their wisdom, they would give us small amounts of information at a time, making sure that each time a page was turned, we understood exactly what was...
I have this tendency to think, as I look through these, I think about an Indian with a saw. I've never seen an Indian with a saw. I just haven't seen. You don't see that. You see an Indian with a bow and arrow. You see an Indian maybe with a spear. You see an Indian with a hatchet. But I don't see no Indians walking around with saws.
Was being offered. The basics would begin this day.
People got here. One of them was Trail of Tears. But before that, my great-grandpa, whose name was Little Pig, had left 3 years before the Trail of Tears. He knew that far ahead what was going to take place.
Now, this is kind of interesting because my grandma did end up, she ended up with the people, the Confederates in the end. But when my grandfather had a general store, it was in the Kituwa Nation. So I'm wondering, I think she was born in the Kituwa Nation and then moved to Yuba, Oklahoma, which would be in the Cherokee Nation, the Trail of Tears Indians. And he's kind of talking about this too, is that of how some of them moved down into Oklahoma after the Civil War. This would be, you know, moving up in the world. This story goes all the way up into the 1960s was, I think, the last time that there was a Indian war with the Lakotas, you know, Wounded Knee area, South Dakota. So these Indian stories keep right on going, right up in the World War I and through the cowboy days.
Talk to the people. It was already going too far. Divided. People were divided, disagreeing.
They're divided,
The few people that believed him and followed him, they came with.
The people were divided. The people were disagreeing, especially when the Civil War got here, because the Cherokee had to decide if they was going to be, if they were going to go up in Kansas and be a Union Army, or if they was going to go down to Oklahoma and be a Confederate Army.
3 years before Trail of Tears and stuff.
And not only, well, he's talking about the Trail of Tears too. They were divided then between the industrial, white influenced, they wanted to own land, Cherokees. They wanted to industrialize like the white men, or the Kiowas, who were, who wanted to live the traditional hunting and gathering, the land belongs to everyone, Indian ways. So yeah, and both those two divided also on the North-South Civil War, Confederate Union issue too.
He kept this religious, and all the bylaws with him.
Kept the religion and the bylaws. All right, so you have a religion break here, where you have Cherokees going to white man schools, Cherokee Indian schools, or Cherokees growing up in the traditional way in the wilderness. Okay, so you know what's going to happen to the one in the white man school. He's going to be Christian. Okay, and originally in the Christian, in the Cherokee, the original Cherokee nation, North Carolina, the original Cherokees before white men came here, they never knew no Christian religion. So here you got another divide again. The Christians go to the Confederate side of the Civil War, and the traditional that he's talking about, Kiowa religion, goes to the Union side of the Civil War. Which this all makes sense when you think about Democrats and Republicans and Confederates and Union.
And he was already here when Trail of Tears come to this. The rest of them was living here.
The Union is more for freedom. Okay, free man, free black man. The Confederates are more for control. Control man, control slave black man. See? But it's not just black man issue. It's man, period. They don't care what color you are. It's about hierarchy of control versus freedom. Same thing, Democrat, Republican today.
Chief Willie.
Maybe this is one reason I'm a Thomas Jefferson Republican, is because it was in my fucking blood in the first place, you know, or just born into my culture from generations passed down to my family. I don't know. My two brothers didn't get it very well. But they always had this, they were always on the hate Indian side. My mom would say, you got some Cherokee blood in you. And my brothers would be lying. I'm all white. I'm an Englishman. They thought they was a damn Englishman.
William Smith, the official spokesman.
That's Scotch. They're Scottish. So kind of.
And would become our teacher for the next year and a half. As we talked, a game seldom seen anymore was underway. But here, it's not only a tradition, it's part of the bylaws.
Stickball game, and the main folks use the sticks. They're not allowed to use their hand.
Now look at this. This actually does not look like a bunch of white boys out there. This is looking more correct.
And the women use their hand. And they got a wooden fish up on top of that pole. Anytime either side hits that fish, counts 7 points. And anytime each side hits the pole above the mark, it counts 1 point. And there ain't no numbers to keep the score.
So there we go. I had noodles for dinner. Noodles. I look like a couple of people stopped by and said hi. I don't know if anybody's interested in Cherokee history. But I didn't bring it up. Elizabeth Warren brought it up. Okay. It did spur my mind. I'm got to dig through this cabinet. It's full of things like graphics cards, motherboards, cables, an army helmet, shotgun shells, bullets, books, power supplies, all kinds of shit. And somewhere up in there's an envelope of family, Cherokee, the Qualls family history. And that's where I can trace these roads that he's talking about how his relatives get there. Because it sounds like he's got some relatives that didn't go on the Trail of Tears, but they would have been still there after the 1817 treaty. So that means they're running for the hills, like my family, and eventually working their way across the Tennessee River, like my family. Hi, Kelly. Thanks, Susie. Oh, wow. Oh, gee. Man, you got your title. You're out because I have you blocked. Man, quit giving me a hard time. Oh, I appreciate that, Susie. I have a guy that I work with, 100% Navajo. He said that his grandfather told him he would have killed all of us as we came up over the Atlantic. He hated me still. He said, no, but if you see what happened to the Cherokee Nation, about how white they have become. It's only they got a little infiltration, The white man really, it's just, we all know it's a bad story. So, hearing what white people did to him and his tribe, I can understand. Yeah. With us Cherokees, man, they moved us from one good piece of land to the next good piece of land and to the next good piece of land. And they came in behind us and took those pieces of land away as they was pushing us ahead of them to kind of safeguard the way. You want to take, the white man wants to take over some land, push the military out there, build a fort, and push some of your Indians here that you've, domesticated, push them out there in front of you to clear the land to make sure it's safe, and then send the white people in there to take over the land and push the Cherokees farther west to conquer some more land for you. And then as soon as they conquer that, move white people in there and then move those Cherokees west again. Any place you want to go settle, move Cherokees. I mean, I don't know much about the Navajos. Maybe that's something maybe I should make a channel just for Native Indian studies. Because I know that was one video. And then there was a video put up last April that's really good. But I'm not sure what else there is that's good. Navajos are making good money. English and the Cherokees are not making money. My husband's, see, you never know how it's going to go. And you never know what kind of Cherokee you're dealing with either. Whether it's a Union Cherokee or whether it's a Confederate Cherokee. Whether it's Cherokee Nation or it's Kiowa Cherokee. Yeah, see you later, Roadkill. I'm about out of here too. I didn't know if anybody would want to see this. Since I did the Elizabeth Warren video, nobody wanted to see it either. And there's no drama in this. But I mean, it's something, a part of history that I don't know that everybody knows. I don't know that people know that there's a Union Cherokee tribe and there's a Confederate Cherokee tribe, and there's a white man industrialized Cherokee tribe, and there's a hunting gathering traditional Native American Cherokee tribe, and that they're different people and they did different things, and they traveled across from east to west in different ways and for different reasons, and there's one of them that really holds and distributes the history now, and there's one of them that has its own history that's not as easy to find now, and then there's everything in between, and there's all along the whole way they're mixing races with the white people. That's why so many white people got a little bit of Cherokee in them, is because the Cherokees were pushed out in front of the white man and the white man come behind him, and then they pushed the Cherokees farther and the white man come behind him. So all the way, this is a joint venture between the white man and the Cherokee to help give the Cherokee what he's telling them is going to be his new land. We promise, if you go out there, white man will not surround you. You'll have, from there on, will be yours. Well, no, white men don't surround you. White men come behind you and push you farther over to clear some more land for him to settle on. And so it's a whole endeavor that's happening, an interaction between the white men supplying the Cherokee tools to move west. And so, there's going to be intermingling between the races while they're doing that, while they're moving west. Some of them are military, some of them are Indian squaws, and they're moving west. And along the way, they're dropping off mixed breed, half white, half Indian children, all the way strung from North Carolina to Pueblo, Colorado. Almost sounds like discussed stuff within each group. Have a good night, Roadkill, man. Just need to be one group. Yeah, I think, and that's maybe over the years, that's where the Cherokee is going back to. But I don't know. The Cherokee Nation is in charge of the history, and they're hiding so much. How can we go back when they're hiding us true natives and tried to hide us out of their history? And it's the whole story is the Trail of Tears, the Trail of Tears, the Trail of Tears. Well, it's it started way before the Trail of Tears. I know, pipe dream. Actually, but I mean, if you still do have your choice of, I choose to be a white guy on the computer driving my truck. That's not to say that, a traditional Native American nowadays wouldn't drive a truck and wouldn't have a phone. Well, I don't know if they got any cell towers. I've been up there, the Norfolk, and I met some of them that actually live in the wilderness. They got no electricity, no gas, no. They might have, shotgun and rifle, and might have a truck, but they live off the land up there in the Ozarks in Arkansas. I met, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 or 5 of them that actually lived that way. They still lived in the same way that the Kiowa Indians lived before the white man ever come to America. Still up there in Arkansas, living that way. Hillbillies. They're not really hillbillies, though. They are kind of hillbillies. They're Indian hillbillies. Where'd that go? Always been. Oh, thanks for hitting the like. So, anybody wonders what I'm doing? That's what I'm doing. And from here out, I'm on, I haven't reviewed this material territory. So, and I don't know, I may be walking into copy strike. But I got nothing to do. And for anybody that doesn't have nothing to do, I don't know. Maybe this is interesting. But anybody that has something better to do, then go for it. But I'm gonna see what else. What else? I'm gonna go Cam with Tammy in a little bit, but Tammy went to take a nap. And I'm killing time doing this. What else we got here? Number 3. Oh, this is part 1, part 2. Oh, there's other parts. Wait a minute. Are these the same? All right, let's go back. All right, let's do this. I'll just go up here and do a search. Key to Wow. Oh man, we got different things. Nighthawk Society band rolls. I'm probably on a Kiowa, not on a. I'm probably on a real Kiowa roll, but I'm probably not on a national, on Cherokee, a Confederate Cherokee roll. So I'm just gonna go here. To broad range, lost Kiowa Indians. See what this guy says about them. That's right, forgotten Cherokees. That's what I'm saying. They want to forget us.
Historic, cultural. These are words generally
That was Sequoia.
the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians.
But there's more to this vibrant living tribe than just a rich historical past. There is also a story of ongoing struggles to become a self-sufficient nation, building upon a strong community with identities and admirable values.
Our tribe from the beginning had had a tough time, but I'm very proud to say that we've been resilient. We've been able to keep going. One thing the council have in common, all councils, is that we kept the tribe going.
But who are
The
you?
United Kituah Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma is a federally recognized tribe organized under the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act of 1936.
The
Confederate.
tribe has approximately 12,000 members, the majority of whom reside in the 14 counties in northeastern Oklahoma, which make up the tribal jurisdiction of the Kituah Cherokees.
The Kituahs are custodians of the traditional Cherokee language and culture.
Sequoia's.
All tribal members must be a minimum of one-quarter Cherokee. The Kituahs are one of the few federally recognized tribes that does not have tribal land held in trust.
Right.
Trust lands are important to tribes in order to promote economic opportunity and an improved standard of
That's
living.
Shell Knob, I think.
Despite the liability of being landless, the
that was in
Kituahs
Oklahoma.
work hard to provide a variety of services for their members. Some of the services are provided to preserve the traditions and culture of the Cherokees, such as Cherokee language classes and traditional craft making courses.
What are those for? Oh, hunting. Okay. So they can tell how to handle them. And they can tell where you're at. Actually.
Other services are designed to address the rigors of day-to-day living.
I
The
don't know. I
Kituahs
know
provide a child
Coquilla
development center,
Kituah.
supports families with subsidized programs and nutrition programs for the elderly of the surrounding communities. The Kituahs also provide job placement, housing repair, and assistance.
We're a bunch of white.
That time I ordered some fish and I was going to pay, and then come over here. But then he didn't come inside here. He just went back out there. And a couple of days, so my daughter go there and pay that thing. You can just wrote here for me. He went on to the office and said, I want to pay my dad's butane. He said, you don't know that. But it was took care of this.
That's what you live off of when you live out there in the hills. You get your tank of butane.
I'm not kidding.
And like that butane, he says, beats the hell out of firewood.
I'm happy with the way the United Kituah Band is helping the elders with their assistance check. Also received help when my brother had cancer and was in a hospital in Arkansas with a little gas assistance to get over there. And I haven't worked since '03.
I've taken
So any help from the United Kituah?
I've taken a girl I know from she's from Muskogee. Angie. I got some pictures actually of her and some videos I got. Taking her from Okmulgee up to Ada, Oklahoma. I think it was Ada. And had the Indian hospital have her baby for free. She could they go have anything done for free. She got all kinds of stuff for free. I think she was Cherokee.
The band is really appreciated gas assistance.
I graduated from Sequoia in
Hell, she's from Muskogee. I know she's Cherokee.
2001, and I received some money for graduating from high school, and I'm currently receiving an educational scholarship from Kituah, which is 15.
Kituah Leo's Army Chị tế Ba he kịp từ Washington từ Jaylen mình có từ số yêu nam and we go yawn that's on me on the you got stopping. Here we are is for Lord so flat hand. 03 we sat down with Andrew Jackson. We wrote to President Jefferson first and we volunteered to move. So we came on ahead and settled in Arkansas.
There it is. All right.
But in 8.
Oh, there's a great map from me. We volunteered to leave. We were not forced to leave. We were the Kiowa. We're the ones that didn't like the white man's ways. And we volunteered to go west across here and clear a path where he would follow behind us and take all our land and keep moving us west out in front of him. So who is it that crossed this great nation?
1828, Indian Territory was just across the river from where our reservation was. And so here 10 years. And we were here with 2 treaties.
Now, I wonder if he's talking about the move to the Mississippi. Because that was, they went first, they moved over to the Mississippi. And they crossed, then the next push, they pushed them over the Mississippi and pushed them to the White River. All this shit goes on river to river to river.
And what united to a band of.
And the next river they would go to is the Arkansas River, pushing over to Pueblo, Colorado. That was the last big push. And then they made the run into Oklahoma and everything went crazy. I need to dig up my homestead titles. I don't know. My dad had them. I don't know if they're lost or my brother's got them.
Cherokee and Oklahoma. After 100.
We had 2 wagons. 2 wagons, from what I understand, did 2 homesteads. So 2 of the wagons running into Oklahoma. I think one of them went to Jennings.
79 years.
One of them I know is Keystone Lake, Tulsa. So what else we got here? What other little goodies is YouTube gonna give me?
Legends of the Katua people say that the name was given after 7 of the wisest men of the ancient Cherokees went to the highest peak and fasted for 7 days and nights, asking the Creator for guidance. This peak is known today as Cleveland's Dome. On the 7th night of their fast, the Creator told them, "You shall be Katua."
Katua Mound, located near what is present-day Bryson City, North Carolina, is understood as the mother town and the place where the Creator gave the laws and first fire to the people. The Eastern Band Cultural Office reports this place wasn't just a town. This was the mother town, the place where the Cherokee began.
The Katua people were.
That gives us 3 kinds of Cherokees. The Eastern Cherokees, whatever ones are left, or whatever fake ones there are now, and the Cherokee Nation, Tahlequah, and the Kiowa, mixed and spread all the way across the Kansas-Missouri, the Arkansas-Missouri border, and the Kansas and Oklahoma border, straight down that line.
originally lived in the southeastern part of the United States, on lands forming present-day Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee.
This right here, this bottom part right here, these are the guys that stayed and stayed. They broke off all this and gave it to the white man, and they gave it, and they got cheated, and they got cheated until there was just this little spot left down here. And all these ones, these are all the Kitawas that left. They all left. They all left. They all left. Some of them kind of lived in the hills or whatever. They got ran off by the white man. This little group down here is the Trail of Tears that got sent off last. I think there's a small Cherokee reservation now left right here.
North Carolina and South Carolina. Archaeologists say that Kituwa Cherokee families began migrating to a new home in Arkansas by the late 1790s.
In 1808, a delegation of Cherokees from the upper and lower towns of Cherokee Nation went to Washington, D.C. to inform the president not all Cherokee people wanted to pursue what was deemed a civilized life.
I went to talk to Thomas Jefferson. Man, Thomas Jefferson, a guy that had a hard life. He was a free man, married to a admiral's daughter or something. To get anywhere in government back in them days, you need to be involved in the shipping agency. And his father-in-law was involved in the shipping agency and owned 203 slaves. When his father-in-law died, then all of a sudden Thomas Jefferson had all these slaves he'd never had before. He didn't know what to do with. So I think he just sit around and smoked pot on the porch and let them have their way, let them do their thing. He's a happy camper. But his wife, ooh, what a bitch.
The delegation requested that the president divide the upper towns whose people wanted to establish a regular government from the lower towns who wanted to continue living traditionally. On January 9, 1809, President Jefferson allowed the lower towns to send an exclusive.
Okay, so now I got it. The upper ones, upper eastern Cherokees, those turn out to be Confederate Cherokees. The lower eastern Cherokees turn out to be Union Cherokees, the Kitawa.
Exploring party to find suitable lands on the Arkansas and White Rivers. 7 of the
They always point you there on the Arkansas and White Rivers. It's not White Rivers. It's one white. I've been over it and showed you the map. It's one big, long, huge Mississippi-size river.
The most trusted men explored locations.
Maybe it's not Mississippi-size, but you know, it's pretty wide.
Both in what is now western Arkansas and also northeastern Oklahoma. The people of the lower towns desired to remove across the Mississippi to this area.
Western Arkansas, northeastern Oklahoma. But where is the Cherokee Nation? It's in southeastern it's in Creek Indian Territory. Strange is that. At Fort Smith, at an army base. How strange is that? Why would you have Indians living at an army base? And writing the history.
Vacant lands within the United States so that they might continue the traditional Kituwa way of life.
In 1817, the United States ceded these lands to Kituwa people, also known as Western Cherokee and later as Old Settlers, in exchange for a portion of the Cherokee lands they had occupied and were entitled to in the East.
Now, see, I've been told that I got an old settler in my background, and I've been told what an old settler is somebody later than this period after the Trail of Tears that moved west after the Trail of Tears. Could be wrong, but that's what I gathered. I'm not sure about that one.
As many as 4 to 7,000 Kituwa old settlers came. The Treaty of 1817 with the United States exchanged lands back east for lands in Arkansas. This gained the Kituwa a definite title to a territory.
Exchanged lands back east. So at this point, it's looking like they gave up their own lands. They traded. They said, here, take this stuff. There's too many white people here. And there's too much American government, laws, rules, land ownage. We'll just move. And so maybe, you know, the Cherokees did. I know in the final thing, the Cherokees are pretty much cheated out of their land, but maybe heading up to it, these people just said, I've had enough. And I'm getting the hell out of here. Here, take my land and see this place on the map. Help me get there. And don't mess with me when you get there. Of course, the white man's going to say, I'll help you get there. But we'll see about the rest of that story. I'm coming right behind you, though, because I'm the one supplying you with the hammers and nails.
What is called today?
And boats. I see pictures of the boats here, and I saw pictures of the boats in Norfolk. Not the same kind of boats. These big river shipping boats that they're moving on. And you can see these rivers. These rivers go all over the place, especially probably before they put in dams, you know, and dammed up and started controlling the flows of these waters. You could just travel all over the place, load up this boat, ship it down here, unload it, put it on wagons, wagon it over there, send the ships back with full of furs and you know, corn or whatever they got out of this, mostly fur trading, probably furs out of this new land. A lot of coonskin. Daniel Boone probably got his coonskin cap right here.
Hey, a land base.
The Arkansas Cherokee requested the U.S. recognize the Eastern and Western Cherokee as two separate and distinct nations.
Further, the Treaty of 1817 stipulated that the treaties hereto.
All right, so they're two separate nations, East and West. Okay, and then they took the Eastern, gathered them all up, put them on the Trail of Tears, sent them to southeastern Oklahoma to the Creek Nation to go probably control the creeks, Fort Smith. So they're two separate nations. But the people that got moved to Fort Smith, to Tahlequah, they want to act like, no, we're not two separate nations. We're the same, and we're actually better than them old guys. We're the more industrialized white tribe, and those guys are a bunch of guys who live in the hills. Those are the old hill settlers, and so I don't see it that way. I mean, even though my grandma Ethel Qualls ended up in Yuba, Oklahoma, eventually. I mean, that was after, you know, World War, or after, yeah, you know, World War II or something. Anyway.
Therefore, between the Cherokee Nation and the United States are to continue in full force, with both parties of the nation and both parts thereof entitled to all the immunities and privileges which the old nation enjoyed under the aforesaid treaties.
Unlike the old Cherokee Nation, the Western Cherokee Kituwa readily accepted Sequoia's Cherokee syllabary in 18.
I think they got Sequoia dressed up there because he lived with he was a Union man. He lived with a Kiowa. This must be his dress clothes. I see, because I don't think he's that kind of Indian. Kind of looks like I could be relative to this guy.
1822. Then Chief Nakadoka was opposed to the introduction of the mission schools and greatly influenced the acceptance of a way to write the Kituwa people's own language.
Funny thing, I talked to a person in a hangout once, or a chat room or something. I said, yeah, I have a little Cherokee blood in me. And she said, you got any hair on your chest? And I said, I just very little. She says, yep.
By 1828, the Kituwa people entered into a treaty with the United States to move onto lands further west. This treaty granted the Western Cherokees land running along the Arkansas, Canadian, and Grand Rivers. They were also given a perpetual outlet west as far as the sovereignty of the United States extended. By the Treaty of 1828, the Kituwa moved to Indian Territory in Oklahoma 10 years prior to the forced removal of the Cherokee Nation.
Between 1828 and 1839, a capital was established east of Chief Jolly.
Something to be thought about when I look at this is, look at all these rivers. A lot of these rivers are swallowed up by large lakes now. These rivers have been dammed off and created lakes, and it's a different landscape here. These rivers in these times were the road maps, and this road map doesn't look the same anymore, but this was the road map of how you got to from one place to another. It wasn't highway to highway, it was river to river.
Jolly's home, about 2 miles up the Illinois from its mouth on the Arkansas. The council house, grounds, and home of this first chief made up the national capital called Tolentesky to honor the chief's brother, the former chief. The General Council met here for 11 years.
In 1833, Old Settler, or Western Cherokee Kituwa, met with the Muskogee Creek Nation at Cantonment-Gibson to settle boundary disputes and precisely establish the boundaries of the new territory. Creeks who had...
That's when they're moving them into the Creek Indian Nation.
Been removed from the east in 1826 to 27, had found themselves living within the newly established Cherokee lands and were required to move again. The treaty fixed the boundaries for what would become known as the Cherokee Nation of Indian Territory after the Trail of Tears in 1839.
I know Eufaula Lake, when they dammed up Eufaula, the Canadian River, I think there, made Eufaula. My grandpa owned a graveyard and a funeral home. He was a mortician. He was actually a chemical engineer that became a furniture maker and mortician. Made coffins, made chairs and stuff, you know, whatever. And took care of the cemetery. He had to dig up some of these old Indian burial grounds and move them so they could dam up the Canadian River and create Eufaula Lake. I believe it's Canadian River. And my family runs deep in this history.
The Old Settlers enjoyed only a few years of peace before being joined by the Treaty Party and ultimately by the Eastern Cherokee, marking the beginning of the Cherokee Civil War.
After the influx of the Eastern Cherokee from the Trail of Tears,
Cherokee Civil War. Huh. Okay. Are we headed for the Confederate and Union here? Civil War?
the Easterners greatly outnumbered the Western full-bloods, and tensions began to mount. The Eastern newcomers wanted their form of government to replace the government which was already...
And the government that was already here thought they was a bunch of idiots because they didn't leave before they got forced out. And now the people who got forced out, the idiots who stayed, we're going to try and take over and rule the people who left voluntarily because they thought that the upper Cherokee had made such a mess of things dealing with the white man. They're like, I'm getting out of here. And then the white man throws the lower people out, sends them to Oklahoma, and they want to take over. You know, they got forced out. They want to take over the people who the people who got forced out want to take over the people who volunteered to leave and who was already there. Bastards.
In place. The Western Cherokee, of course, objected to such displacement of their own powers and was also against the provisions of the Treaty of New Echota.
Both the Western Cherokees and the Eastern Cherokees objected to the Treaty of New Echota, stating that the signers had not been authorized.
However, the Western Cherokee sent 2 delegates, James Rogers and John Smith, to make sure the provisions in the treaty were clear about the position Cherokee Nation would have when arriving in Western Cherokee territory. The provision in the treaty, signed by the 2 Keetoowah, assured Cherokee Nation of a friendly disposition of their people and their desire that the nation should be united again as one people. But this uniting was meant to be with the Cherokee Nation joining the Western Cherokee government. The provision assured them a hearty welcome and equal participation with them in all the benefits and privileges of the Cherokee Country West. The provision concluded with,
This shit happened all the time. They'd have 4 Indians sign a paper to fuck over 4,000 Indians. 4 Indians, and those 4 Indians would get rich, and the 4,000 Indians would get pushed off west.
expressly understood that nothing in this treaty shall affect any claims of the Western Cherokee on the United States.
She's pretty cute.
The Western Cherokees gave welcome to their friends and family without complaint. They said there was room enough for all.
I think that's one of the reasons that lots of white people want to claim they got some Indian blood in them, and it's Cherokee. It's because Cherokees are cute, man. I kind of see some Indians sometimes. They're like, "That's an Indian," and I'm like, "Are you sure?" Not very cute. What else we got? Yeah, this Central Branch Cherokee guys. Now they decide they'll make up a name, Central Branch Cherokee. What else we got here? 27 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Ligwed.
Oh, I think I know who this lady is.
Keetoowah name. And my English name is Ernestine Berry. I'm director of the United Keetoowah Band Cultural Center and Museum in
Yeah,
Tulsa,
she's pretty cool.
And I'm very glad to see y'all this morning. And I want to just share with you a little bit about the United Keetoowah Band of Cherokees. A lot of people know or think they know a lot about
kind of cute
the
for an
Cherokees,
older lady.
but there are very few people who really know very
I'd
much
date
about
her.
the United Keetoowah Band. So we're going to try to answer some questions that are commonly asked of me at the museum. Where did the name Keetoowah come from? Because everybody knows Cherokee, but they don't know Keetoowah. Who are the Keetoowahs? I get that question asked quite a bit. Are the Keetoowahs part of the Cherokee
I'm
Nation?
going to stop telling people I'm Cherokee. I'm going to start telling them I'm
two Cherokee
Keetoowah.
governments in Tahlequah? So we'll try to answer those questions for you. I'm going to try to go quickly because I have a number of slides here. It takes a while, but I'll try to go as quickly as I can through them. The Keetoowah people, that is the original name of the people is Keetoowah and Ikituwagi, and they became known by a different name, which is Cherokee. There are other tribes also that got named. They're known by different names. The Muskogees are known as Creeks. The Navajos, their real name is Dene, and they're trying to reclaim that name now. So it's sort of the same thing here.
The Creeks are
We have
Navajo. I didn't know
people,
that.
and we have Cherokees, but we're all the same people. We came from the same place.
So Callie was
originated
talking
the same
about
place.
Navajo. They're
And actually,
Creeks.
Cherokee is a foreign name, has no meaning in the Cherokee language.
In my
The common
land.
name that the people called themselves was the Aniyawiya. Aniyawiya, that means real people. And that's kind of common among native tribes also. We're called the real people. Anikatuwagi, Aniyambiya. That means we are Kituwa. We are the real people. The legend of the name came down to us from the Creator, according to our legend. There were 7 holy men who went to the mountain to pray, and they fasted for 7 days and nights. And on the 7th night, a messenger came to them and told them that God had compassion for them and that they would be called Anikatuwagi or Kituwa. Also, the name is attached to the mother town, which is in North Carolina. The area where the old Kituwa Mound is was farmed for many years, for over 150 years, and it was plowed down. But there in the area, you can see just a little rise where the mound was, and it is a burial mound. There are ancestors buried in that mound, but it still retained its name. I
probably got relatives buried there.
Kituwa, and generally the northern or the eastern Kituwa spell the name K-I-T-U-W-A-H. In the west, we spell it K-E-E-T-O-O-W-A-H. Even though it's spelled differently, it's the same thing. The Eastern Band bought the land back in 1969, and now it's declared to be a sacred area, and it very definitely is. So the name Kituwa has endured for that length of time from, well, we say from before history, actually. So who were and who are the Kituwas? The Kituwas were historically the traditional and full-blood Cherokees. When the Europeans came, of course, there was a lot of turmoil in the society, and a lot of it was caused by intermarriage with the Europeans. The traditional and full-blood Cherokees decided that in order to maintain their traditional status and be able to practice their traditional ways, that they would move west because of all the turmoil that was created by the Europeans. So in the early 1800s, they began to seek a reservation in Arkansas. They did get that reservation. It's marked here on the slide. The northeastern part there is the White River, and on the southwestern part is the Arkansas River. So they held that territory for about 11 years. And then after that, the white people who had begun to move into the area, and also the Osages who already claimed that area, the Cherokees had battles with them. And also the Europeans who came in actually at gunpoint began to run those Indians out of their homes. And so they decided that they needed some help. They went to the federal government to ask for help. The federal government said, well, you know, really not too much we can do about the white people coming in. What you need to do is just move a little bit farther west into Indian territory. So in 1817, they signed a treaty which relinquished the reservation in Arkansas, and they took land in Oklahoma, or the Indian Territory, as it was known of as at that time. Now, the Arkansas Reservation was almost in Indian Territory. It was on the western side of Arkansas. They had built their homes, established their farms, their government, and also later on, near the end of their time there, they had allowed the Presbyterians to come in and build a school. Basically, they were interested in education, and so they allowed the Presbyterians to come in. And they were fairly prosperous there in Arkansas. In Indian Territory, when they got into Indian Territory in 1828, they signed a treaty giving up that land in Arkansas and moving into what is now known as Oklahoma. And this map here shows the Oklahoma Territory and the land that they were given. It stretched all the way across Oklahoma to the Panhandle.
Sell their land and get pushed west, and then the white people move in behind them.
At that time.
They're the front line.
They were the first Cherokees into Oklahoma, so they acquired the name of the settlers. Now the East, I'm not going to go very much into the Eastern immigrants, or the last group of Cherokees that came into Indian Territory over the Trail of Tears. I think most people know the story of the Trail of Tears. The Eastern immigrants came, though, in 1838-39 and joined the old settlers, or Western Cherokees, who were already there.
They didn't join them.
John Ross, who was the chief of the Eastern immigrants, began to push for the Act of Union. And that was something that was really
then the Civil War
not welcomed by the old settlers, because they already had their government set up, and they welcomed the people there. They said, welcome, to our land, we have room for everybody.
Right.
So
if that's
they
true,
were
then
welcomed.
John Ross,
And then John Ross began to push for the Act of Union, which they did sign. Sequoyah was one of the Western Cherokees who signed that document, and also the acting chief of the old settlers signed it. But there were many who were still not satisfied with it.
Sequoyah went
really
Union Army. John Ross went Confederate Army.
However, the unified government lasted until about the time of the Civil War. The Catawbas were always very forward-looking people. In 1858, just prior to the beginning of the Civil War, they met at Bug Tucker Spring near Tahlequah, and they talked about the Civil War and the war between the states, and how there was going to be war and what was going to be their part and how they were going to respond, what they were going to do. They had feared that their people were going to be torn apart and families were going to be torn apart during that war, because they had always been dragged into European American wars.
They knew the military very well. The military was always right on their butt.
Thought would help them to hold the Catawba.
They were military.
And Bud Gritz was
the front line of the military. Daniel Boone's military.
Approved in all of the Catawba, they called them lodges back then. All of the Catawba lodges voted, and they approved the Constitution in 1859. And so they expressed their idea that they wanted to be neutral in the during the wartime. They didn't want to fight for either side. They wanted to just protect their homeland. Chief John Ross at that time was
like
also
a white boy.
Neutral, and so they kind of backed him during the previous to the Civil War. But then in August of 1861, the Cherokees voted to throw in with the Confederacy, and that was something that the Catawbas did not want to happen. And so they took the opposite side. As soon as they could, they began to desert the South and go to the North. They were although they were mustered into the Confederacy, the Catawbas began to desert almost immediately. And they were under the command of John Drew. He had around 1,200 Catawbas that were under his command. And eventually, there were only about 60 of them that left in his command that were left. And then this is one of my great-great-great-grandfathers is Captain James Vann. I had to throw him in here.
Yeah, you have to.
Captain for the Union.
You got to throw this in because this shows you the connection between the Indians and the Army military. The Indians were the front line. In the times of Daniel Boone, the Cherokee Indians, the Kiowa Indians, not even the Cherokee. The Kiowa were connected heavily with the United States Army. They were the front line. They were the first soldiers to go west and settle lands in Navajo territory, I guess, Creek, Navajo, Osage, moving west across Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, the front line. This is a Indian, but he's an American military guy. And I think I have some of these, just like I got some of these military records that I'd have to look up. And this military guy may have moved down a river and worked for the military, or he may have worked in relation to the military in one place for 10 years and then moved to the next place and worked there for the military for 10 years and then moved west again and moved and worked there for the military. It's a migration of the United States Army migrating west, and their front line is the Kiowa Indian. It's not the Indian that you find in Tahlequah, the Indian nation today. These are the guys that fought across and settled across the west to open the roads for wagon trains that would come after them.
He was mustered into the Confederacy, but the same month he was mustered into the Confederacy, he deserted and went to the North. He became the commander of the Company E, Kansas 3rd Indian Home Guard.
Kansas Home Guard. See? Wagon Trail.
Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Downing also was a Catula member. He was a Baptist minister. He was a chaplain for the Confederacy until July of 18.
There we go. Another Indian in a military uniform. You see it over and over.
62, when he decided that he also would desert and go to the north. He led about 200 of his people into Kansas, and they joined up with the 2nd Kansas Indian Home Guard. He also later, after the war, became the chief of the Cherokee Nation because he was able to kind of bring the two sides together. And again, they were able to kind of function even though they had been on different sides during the war. The Catawbas were awarded a flag, which we have at the museum, after the Civil War for their faithful service to the Union during the war between states. The current government. Are the Catawbas part of the Cherokee Nation? No, we are not part of the Cherokee Nation. At one time, at various times, we're kind of part of the Cherokee Nation. Then we're not part of the Cherokee Nation. Then we're part of the Cherokee Nation. So at this present time, no, we are not part of the Cherokee Nation.
Not only does the Cherokee Nation want to try and claim the Kituwas, they want to try and claim that they are the Kituwas. They're not. They were Democrats. The Kituwas were Republicans. Democrats and Republicans are not the same thing.
The Curtis Act of 1898 effectively abolished the government of the Cherokee Nation, and that was just before Oklahoma statehood. They were trying to abolish all the tribes, governments of all the tribes in Oklahoma, so they could have statehood. And of course, oil was discovered back in the 1890s in Oklahoma, and so that kind of sped up the process of taking away the governments of the Indians in Oklahoma and Indian Territory. During the allotment period, the Curtis Act abolished or terminated effectively the governments, and then they wanted to allot the.
I wonder where this Cherokee courts is, because I bet you these Cherokee courts are running out of the Creek Courthouse in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. I know, could be Fort Smith. Not the same thing.
The land separately to each individual. They received a plot of land during that time. And the Catawba leaders said, no, don't do that. Don't vote for it. Don't take your allotment.
We always say that.
The Catawba people refused to accept their allotments. There were newspaper articles published at that time explaining the Catawba position about not accepting.
See, the Catawbas are always, I'm not accepting it. I'd rather leave. I don't want to live under your law. And the Cherokee Nation, the Southeasterns, the Tahlequah Nation is, I wonder what Tahlequah means. They're always like, oh yeah, I'll go along with the white man, and he screws them every time.
Not enrolling, not accepting allotments. And
no allotment here. I got
US
no
government said,
number
yes,
on their
they were going
roll.
to accept their allotments. Whether they wanted to or not, they would accept them. And so they sent the military out from Fort Gibson to round up the Catawba leaders and put them in jail and force them to accept their allotments. So eventually they did accept their allotments, although it was never what they wanted. They wanted to hold their land in common like they had always done. But that was not what the government wanted. The Cherokee Nation was to be terminated by March of 1906, rather, 1906. The Catawbas went to the federal court in 1905.
I bet you everywhere, if I go back and study and figure this stuff out, I'll bet you everywhere from the East Coast, Carolinas, to the West Coast, California, all the way across there, every time there's a United States cavalry moving across there, I bet you there's a group of Indians clearing the path in front of them. I bet you. I just bet you. Building a fort, building a courthouse, hiring a blacksmith, and eventually the wheelers, the wagon wheelers, wagon shop, wheel, stable, store, and a band of Indians in front of you to protect you from the people of the West as you move across the West. Interesting. Who conquered the West?
And they were awarded certificate of incorporation. And what they did for them was it gave them the right to have standing in courts, because they knew that when the land was gone and it was allotted to everybody, everybody had their separate piece of land, that there would still be times when people would try to take it away from them. So they fought in the courts for the Cherokee people during that time. And the Kituas were the only ones that were authorized to do that.
This is in times of Sequoia. Is that his name? The reason that they could fight in the courts with the federal government is because they were not forcibly removed. They had never had any disputes with the government. They had always operated on contracts with the government, where the southeastern Tahlequah, the Trail of Tears Cherokees, were actually booted off their land. They didn't have no choice. There wasn't a volunteer contract. But the Kituwas always dealt voluntarily through contracts with the United States government. They were never forced to do anything. So that's why later, in these later years, the Kituwa Cherokee, the Kituwas could actually work through the courts of the government. Also, they were not Confederates. They weren't Democrats. They were Republicans. They were part of the Union Army. So they had connections through the Union Army. Of course, a lot of them were Union soldiers. And they were soldiers of the North before the Civil War. So they had instant connections with Abraham Lincoln's administration. But the Southern Cherokees, southeastern Tahlequah, were Confederates. They were Democrats. They had no connection with the Abraham Lincoln Republican government. So they weren't able to establish contracts with them because they were basically prisoners of war. They were prisoners. They were forcefully migrated to Oklahoma. But these Kituwas, no, they only worked by contracts and agreements voluntarily, never forced to do anything by the government, always worked for and on the side of the Republican government. Can you see a divide between this Cherokee? There's not just one Cherokee. There's three different kinds of Cherokees. Absolutely three totally different sets of people.
Not the Cherokee Nation. Later on, during the Great Depression, there was a move to allow the Indian tribes to again organize their governments. And
Great Depression. We're clear up after World War I now. My relatives have spent 3 generations, ranging from just after the Trail of Tears, 1840s or 50s, 60 years of traveling town to town to town across the old path of the old settlers, knowing that path because it's related to the old settlers. You can go to relatives from town to town to town and travel all the way to the White River, which was where that was the goal, was to settle at the original reservations at the White River. Sylamore, just south of Norfolk Lake, Norfolk City, south to Calico Rock, past Calico Rock, which Calico Rock was probably that. Well, that's where Jacob Wolf's courthouse and blacksmith was. And then just a little bit farther south, Sylamore, Arkansas is where my family was headed. And by the time we got to World War I, he was probably there. Possibly, I think 2 generations to get there. And then I get another generation that moves on to Kansas. And then another generation that moves down finally into Oklahoma, but not east, central, to a small little one-store town, Yuba. That's a story of my grandpa moving country stores from Kansas into Oklahoma. It has nothing to do with Indians at all.
And the Kituas began immediately in 1934 when they passed the Indian Reorganization Act. They began to reorganize their government. They were told at that time that
1934, this is when Hitler's coming to power, and we still got Indians trying to settle their ground.
There would be another bill coming across that would meet the needs of the Oklahoma Indian tribes, since there were no reservations. The IRA was basically for reservation tribes. The Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act was written and passed, and the Kituas sought recognition under that, and they did receive their recognition in 1946. Their government documents were approved in 1950 and became the only governmental entity in Oklahoma for Cherokees. And why are there 2 Cherokee tribes? Well, during the reorganization period, the Kituas were the ones who organized. It was not foreseen that Cherokee Nation would ever be reorganized. They would never have another government, that the government would be a new government. And maybe
this is why Elizabeth Warren don't know shit about her Cherokee background. Maybe she's Cherokee Nation, and she's just been bullshit by a bunch of fucking Democrats this whole time, Confederates. Okay? But us people who are Kitawas, all right, the Republicans, the Union Cherokees, we cared more about it, and maybe we didn't write it down in records as much, but it just got kind of passed down from family to family. I got a book, practically a book full of records on how my Kitawa family got here to Wichita now, and I'm in Wichita, Kansas. And I got a book that tells how. But the only thing Elizabeth Warren got is we fucking loaded you up. We didn't even load you up. We made you walk to Oklahoma to your prison camp. And so that's what Elizabeth Warren probably is. She don't know. She don't tell us. And the fact that she don't know makes me wonder, is she a victim of the Trail of Tears, a Cherokee prison encampment on the move? And not even serving the purpose of the traditional Cherokee, which was to move out and clear the land for the white settlers to move west.
Katuas had to prove that they had at times acted as a government, which they did during the Civil War because they took the opposite side, had their constitution. And also after allotment, they had their certificate of incorporation where they represented the people on the land issues. And so they were approved to organize under those statutes. The Cherokee Nation never
I think it's so funny, though. I think it's so funny how all the way the U.S. government is saying, we're going to move you west, and we promise we won't come around and surround you from the east side. Like, that's what happened in North Carolina. They got surrounded. So they always thought, you know, I'm safe. You know, you promised me not to come around. Well, the U.S. government couldn't come around and surround them from the eastern side, because if they did, all the Navajos and Apaches and everybody else, you know, across the west would kill them. So it's kind of this blind trip west that goes over about 3 generations, 4 generations, all the way up to me, 5, 6 generations.
thought to reorganize at that time. And they did gain the right in 1970, October 22nd, 1970, they got a law passed in Congress that said they were allowed to select their chief. It does not say elect, it says select. And that was in 1970. And then in 1976, they got a new constitution and they began their reorganization. The Kituwa flag. On our flag at the bottom there, you'll see
1976.
Cherokee, Anikaduwagi, Aniyunwiya. That means we are the
1976, they finally settled as to who is who, who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. I was 16 in 1976. I was 16 years old by the time these people finally got this stuff settled out. Interesting.
the people of Kituwa. We are the real people. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
No. Actually, I've got 100 questions. I'll leave my questions in the comments below.
Well, the original syllable that Sequoia developed was far different from this. And it was more ornate. And back when they began printing the Cherokee
Sequoia
newspaper,
was a fairly white guy.
They adapted some of the Roman characters for those characters that Sequoia had created.
Sequoia was pretty white. He was, I mean, he didn't look white, but I mean, as for thinking wise, he was white, but he was, so he was intelligent, and he had 2 tribes to choose from. The tribe that improved industrialization, or the tribe that wanted to be traditional. He chose the traditional. Of course, they were the legal. They were not under any kind of military extraction. They were not prisoners of war. So.
And that was because they were harder to create in the hot molded type that they used back in those days. And so they simplified it. And this is why we have wound up with these Roman characters.
We don't draw big audiences.
They were definitely outnumbered, yes. Yes, and that basically is the reason why the Eastern immigrants wound up being the leaders in the government.
They were outnumbered, but they were better supplied. they were outnumbered by a bunch of people who just got done walking 2,000 miles and dying a lot along the way, sick, worn out, put in basically a prison camp in Oklahoma. Those were the majority. The Kiowas were the minority, but the Kiowas were military. They were the front line for the military. So they may think that they rule everything, but they still do not have as good establishment with the U.S. government as the Kiowa, the Union, the Republican, the Abraham Lincoln Cherokees have a better connection and are better equipped than the prison camp Trail of Terror Cherokee Nation, who has more people in their prison camp.
Okay, any other questions?
What do they call that? Attainment camp? Is they call it, you know, like they did with the Japanese? They round y'all up and push you off into, you know, lock you up.
Yes. What's happening to them? Well, most of them are members of the United Kituwa Band. And
I'll tell you what's happening with the Kituwas. They're living their life, and they're just living it pretty much like they've always lived it. I'll tell you what I think's going on with the Cherokee Nation. It's been commercialized and turned into a tourist attraction.
there's some that are Cherokee, of course, because there's a mixture there of the old settler. Eventually, there was a mixture, the old settlers, with the Cherokee Nation who came later. And the United Kituwa Band still represents those Cherokee.
There's not a mixture. Some of them are Republicans with Abraham Lincoln, and some of them are Democrats with Jefferson Davis. That's a separation.
Who are more traditional, and hopefully we will get our full rights. We don't have those yet, but hopefully we will at some time in the future get our rights.
You don't want your rights. We don't want our full rights. You want the same rights as any other American. Okay? We don't want any special. I mean, I can't speak for us, but the way I like it is that there ain't no free hospitals for Kiowas. There's free hospitals for the prisoners of war, the internment camp, whatever you want to call it, the Cherokee Nation in southeastern Tahlequah, Oklahoma, Illinois River, the Illinois River Cherokees. I don't think that the White River Cherokees want any donations or any sympathy or any, and they don't want to be turned into some kind of tourist attraction. That's why nobody knows about it. Maybe it's better that way. And hell, they can actually go live in the hills of Arkansas in their traditional life anytime they want. You go down there on that Illinois, southeastern Oklahoma, you got one choice: be a canoe tourist guide. Yeah. Or you could dig ditches.
Oh yes, the United Kituwa Band is a fully recognized Indian tribe, just like the Cherokee Nation or the Eastern Band. We are fully recognized by the Congress of the United States as a band of Cherokees, and we have our own government.
That is wrong. You are only recognized if if the Democrat Illinois River Trail of Tears decides to recognize you. And so you're really not even true. You're not even, that's, and they want 25%. You're not true. In order for you to be recognized by the United States government as a Kiowa, a Republican Cherokee, the Democrat Cherokee has to say that it's okay for you to claim that you're Republican Cherokee. If they don't say it's okay with them, so they can even take somebody out of their own tribe and say it's one of you and let them govern over you. Sounds like a typical Democrat to me.
Some programs at this time, but we don't have casino money.
It does. It sounds like a Democrat. It sounds like a Confederate. And we don't need no damn casino money. That's charity.
We did have casino money, but we don't now. Our casinos are shut down. Any other questions?
Good. You don't need no casino.
Anybody?
You're military. You're not prisoner.
The Van ancestry, yes, it does. My great-great-great-grandfather, who was in the Civil War, he was descended from the Van in Georgia, yes. Okay, any other? There used to be what? I'm sorry. Well, that's kind of a long story, but I'll try to give you the short version. The United Kituwa Band wanted to have money to help the people. And so in 1986, we bought a little place where we had bingo, paper bingo. And we ran that for a period of time, 10, 15 years. And then we got the slot machine type. Was it class 2? Slot machines. But we have a problem. I guess I could just go ahead and say it. We have a problem with the Cherokee Nation. They don't want us to have anything. They are huge. They claim over 300,000 members.
Prisoners.
And,
prisoners.
We are small. We're small. We're poor. We're traditional.
We're military.
Around 13,000 members.
We're military settlers.
And so they have a lot more political power than we do. And so they're able to get a lot more have a lot more influence with congressmen and the government of the United States. I mean, that's just the truth.
Because we're military.
So,
they're prisoners.
We didn't really have a license for our casino. And we started out so small, and so before everybody else. We had the casino there, or the bingo hall, we called it, a long time before the Cherokee Nation had their casinos, which they have about 8 or 9 of them now. And
they have hundreds.
Multiplied millions of dollars. And we were doing all right for a long time, as long as we had that money coming in. But now we don't have it coming in. So we are still trying to develop businesses. We have a board who's trying to develop businesses for the Kituwas because we haven't been able to get our casino going again. And our chief agreed that if we didn't have the land and trust, what it takes is land and trust to have your casino. But we got our little bingo place there before the regulations, 86, and then I think it's 88 when they had the regulations in. So we preceded the regulations by 2 years, and I think that's just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I think the reason we were able to operate, which we operated for 27 years there, was because that we did.
You know, speaking of smoking off my peace pipe, compulsive desires. You know, what the Indian gave white men was tobacco, peyote, and marijuana. And what the white man gave back to Indian was fucking alcohol, man. Jesus Christ. That's a bad trade. Bad trade.
Precede the regulations. I'm not sure what that stands for, but anyway, it's the regulations. We preceded those, and so the state of Oklahoma didn't try to shut us down or anything. We were just there for 27 years. And then finally, we got the word that we were going to get the land in trust. And so we agreed that if we didn't have, I didn't agree, which I didn't agree with it at all. But our chief agreed that they would shut the casino down if we didn't have the land in trust by August the 30th. And so they had signed the trust land and everything, and then immediately Cherokee Nation filed a lawsuit against us.
Yeah, the prisoners.
To stop the land in trust.
Fucking
so
prisoners.
We couldn't have the land in trust.
We were trying to work by contract.
So then they went ahead and shut it down because we didn't have the land in trust by August 30th. So they shut it down. That's been almost 3 years ago. So we've had a lot of difficulties since then. I might as well just tell you the whole story. We've had
See, the
a lot of difficulty.
The Democrats here who shut her down are the majority. They work in numbers. They don't work in any kind of logical sense at all. These people are trying to work out paperwork, you know, to make a deal with the U.S. government. And then the Democrats come in, well, yeah, it may be a good deal, but we don't like it, so we're just going to vote it out because we got the numbers. You guys got brains, but we got numbers. That's always a tough struggle between Democrats and Republicans.
With our people, because we were using our money for education for young people for college. We were using our money for human services. And now we have very little human services. We get just a little bit from the BIA, but it's not near enough to really help. Money for education.
Don't want their money.
Gets our education money.
So
we are pretty much bound and tied right now. And the court hasn't made any decisions. So that's where we are. That's where we are right now. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Our requirements for membership? Our requirements for membership are that you have to be at least 1/4 Cherokee blood.
All right. That is not a Kituwa requirement. That is a prisoner, Democrat, in prison Democrat, Cherokee Nation requirement that is a joke. Who can put a number on it? What you are when you say I am Indian is then you have to start guessing. You have to actually start guessing. This is really weird. As I look through my family tree and I see Indian blood coming in from this side here, and then I see white blood comes in from there, and then there's some more Indian here, and then there was a whole bunch of Indian, and then there was a whole bunch of white. So to try and track to this date how much you are, becomes it becomes a mathematical nightmare. I got qualls, believe it or not, I got qualls mixing into maybe 2 generations later, qualls again. So across 2 generations, they're actually inbred. So there was some Cherokee from that one. And then here's a couple generations later, the same Cherokee family marries into this same line again. Okay. And that Cherokee is a mixed breed too. So you have to understand that it's pure breed, mixed breed, and then mix, and then another pure breed, and then here's a half breed, and then here's a quarter breed, all mixing into this line. It becomes a mathematical, almost unsolvable nightmare to figure out if you're a quarter Indian. And the only thing you're going to get out of it is a number that allows you to get charity, that allows you to go to school and to go to the hospital. It gives you medical insurance and education money, and maybe some other things. But it gives you a lot of disadvantages too, because now you marked yourself as a prisoner of war. So, see, there's a lot of times when this lady says shit that makes me think that she's from the Tahlequah Trail of Tears band of prisoner Cherokees when she says something like that. But actually, that's a rule written in their book. That's not a rule written in our book. So if she's really Kiowa, why is she quoting laws out of Cherokee Nation Trail of Tears law book? Why, if she's a Republican, why is she trying to sell us the Democrat law? If she's Union Army, why is she trying to sell us Confederate Army law? If she's Abraham Lincoln, why is she trying to sell us Jefferson Davis law? You see, it kind of makes her, she's walking the line of a traitor here.
At one time, you had to be a full blood. Back in the 1880s, 90s, even on into the 1900s, you had to be a full blood in order to be a member of the Kiowa band.
That would probably knock out every Kiowa. Pretty much most of them, because they were moving with the military across Kansas. They were inbreeding left, right, no doubt about it. They're all inbred. I mean, not interbreeding. They were interbreeding, mixing blood with the white man, with the military. And there's probably hardly any pure Indian blood left in them. So here it is. She's a Democrat. She's a Cherokee Democrat traitor when she says that. But she's not saying it. She's just quoting. She's quoting the Democrat Cherokee laws. But she's not she's not how we say, justifying what she's saying by saying, look, this is according to the Democrat Cherokees. It's not according to the Abraham Lincoln Cherokees. It's according to the Jefferson Davis Cherokees.
But now it's you have to have proof of descent.
It's in favor of the prisoners, and it's against military. But it's in favor of industrialization and against natural native Indian.
Tendency from the Kiowa roll or from the Dawes roll.
Maybe that's because the ways of the natural native born or native blood American Indian is more similar to the Republican Union attitude than it is to the Confederate Democrat attitude. And we know which ones had the slaves and which ones freed the slaves.
Cherokee Nation uses the Dawes roll, which is not a tribal roll. It's a secretarial roll that was made by the U.S. government for the purposes of allotment. And they use that roll to go back and...
I don't think it was made by the government. It's probably made by John Ross, but I'm not sure of that one.
Check for descendancy. And anybody who is descended from that roll can be a member of the Cherokee Nation. They have no blood quantum requirement at all. And so...
Aha! So she just said, if you're one of the prisoners, she just said, if you're one of the prisoners, if you're a Democrat, if you're Jefferson Davis Cherokee, then you don't have to have a quarter blood. You just have to have a descendant that's on the roll as a matter of birth record. They are so conniving. Oh, God, they're just so Democrat. If you're Kiowa, oh, you got to somehow prove that you're a quarter. Okay? If you're a Trail of Tears, you could be Elizabeth Warren, and they will still accept you as being a Cherokee at 1/10,000th of your blood, or 1,000th, 0.0024. So they're so Democrat.
So they have people who are less than 1,000th degree.
She just said it, less than 1,000th degree. See, she accepted Elizabeth Warren. That means, now I don't know if she's accepting or if she's just quoting what the roll says. And she's sitting in her head thinking right now, my tribe, the Kiowas, don't accept this. We don't accept Elizabeth Warren. But according to her Democrat, Jefferson Davis, Confederate, Cherokee roll, they include Elizabeth Warren.
At this time. And so that's how, to my way of thinking, they're able to acquire 300,000 members. So it's kind of a touchy deal, you know, between the Cherokee Nation and the Kituwas.
She knows it's a touchy deal, and she's trying to walk the fence here. You know whose side she's on. She's a Republican talking to Democrats. She cannot, she has to be nonpartisan. But you can just see it in her voice. She does not favor the Confederate. She favors the Union. She has to favor the Union. She claims herself as a Kiowa. So
because we
got to
view
be a
ourselves
Republican.
as the Anikatuwagi and the Uwiya. That means we're the real people. And so we would like to be able to serve our people and have our rights. That's all we want.
Now what that is we're the real people. We're the real free people. Those other Trail of Tear guys, they are real people. They're the real people too, but they're the real prisoner. Prisoner, controlled, slave, Democratic, Confederate, Jefferson Davis, slave people. And we are the real free people. Union, Republican, Abraham Lincoln people.
I've heard the old people say, we want just what belongs to us. We don't want what belongs to them. We want what belongs to us, but we would like to be able to serve our own people. So far, that hasn't happened. So, are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate your questions and hope you enjoy the rest of the Cherokee Days. Thank you very much.
Well, and with that, push the minus sign. I think there's the conversation. Hey, Tiffy. Tiffy was here. She said, "Hey, Dad, I couldn't even see her." Tiffy don't know none of this shit. Tiffy don't know about her Indian blood. I need to learn more about the Navajo. Because I guess the Navajo are part of the Creek. The Creek are part of the Navajo casinos. God, they're all over Oklahoma. Casinos. Thousands for each registered person. Yeah. I think they can find out their percentage now by doing a mouth swab. Yeah, well, headed to bed. Catch up with, good night, too. Might bother Tiffy's mom. Because she took a nap a little while ago, so she's probably going to be awake. I'll pester her. Oh, on share screen. One viewer. Probably me. So there's some Cherokee stuff. Stop sharing. Did I learn anything new? It's interesting. Every time I start looking into this subject, which is every few years, I always learn something new. Because I always start where I left off. And I start, okay, here's where I left off. What do I need to, where does it go from here? And I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. I'll do a hangout on it and nobody watch and I don't give a damn. Because I was entertained. I learned something new. I learned some new things in the last couple of days. I guess I can thank Elizabeth Warren for that. And I guess, according to the rules, if Elizabeth can pull out her family tree and do the math, then Donald owes her some money. And on the basis of a DNA, I guess, I don't know. He said did he say he was going to find that acceptable? It's weird. Jefferson Davis and Abraham Lincoln. Thomas Jackson, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson. You know, one of those is Thomas Jefferson's. I wonder if Andrew Jackson was a Democrat. Because one of those groups is Thomas Jefferson's. And the other group is Andrew Jackson. Yeah, I always start out where I left off. So next time I'm going to have to fucking figure out whether Andrew Jackson was Louisiana Purchase Democrat. I wonder if there's any trail from. I wonder if there's a trail of tears from Andrew Jackson to Jefferson Davis, and then on to Hillary Clinton. I think Hillary Clinton's got some native.